Before we get into it, we are going to do a review of last Friday's watch list, and then we'll go over this Friday's watch list. But before we do that, let's just quickly discuss what's going on for BTC. And if you watched that 2 minute video from my Twitter, that gave pretty much the most actionable analysis that I could possibly give, which was we had already established some pretty high time frame bullish arguments with the reclaim of 4 hour 200 moving averages. And obviously, the trend starts lower than that. So if you think about the snowball to snowman kind of style way of thinking, then the 30-minute 200s really were the first indication of strength, right? We don't really care about that at the time because we're still trading inside this like 2 or 3% range. And even if we go on to reclaim those 4 hour 200s, we're still capped in another 2 or 3% range, right? Because this is our range high. So it's like, oh, we're doing something significant. Oh, we don't actually care. Oh, we're doing something significant again, even more significant. Oh, but we still don't care, right? We're talking about 2 or 3% moves where you could have scaled your assumptions into that like winner's mindset, right? That snowball to snowman way of thinking. This is where the real sort of significance starts to occur because at that point, we're now talking about the same bullish arguments that we had previously, but this time we're talking about a volatile range of about 7% or so. I want to say maybe like 10%, right? But that's the sort of range that you're working with now. So all of a sudden, the arguments that have lingered continue to linger and continue to be added onto. And the way that I revert back to this and that snowball analogy is that this is your sort of snowball, right? This is the reclaim of the 4 hour 200. So that's more of like a larger snowball. And ever since then, you just continue packing on more and more snow. So here is where you pack on more snow. And from there, the analysis in that 2 minute video was literally from here to here, I would assume, is just white space. There's not much there in terms of resistance. There's not much there in terms of physical volume that was traded in that region to back up the actual idea of resistance rather than the speculative idea of, oh, Mercury doesn't have a gray box drawn there, so there's no resistance there, right? So if you're not willing to speculate, you could have used a more sort of interpretational sort of way of thinking, more statistical, right? That actual volume, where was volume traded? And the idea about anticipating that kind of move and trying to play into that kind of move is that if and when we get here and we do something like this, or what is currently happening, you are not the person coping complacent, still arguing, higher time frame bearish arguments that are no longer relevant because what we're doing right now is directly sort of counter those arguments, right? We're relevantly and locally uptrending. And lo and behold, that is exactly what we've continued to do. So ever since then, we've only continued to compound onto those exact same arguments. Now we're deviating back inside a 5 month range, right? Hopefully, I just retweeted prior to me actually creating this video. I just retweeted the whole thread about how I'm shifting my mindset to a much higher scale, something that I've never shifted into any time in the past year or so. So in my head, this rally is different. I did anticipate the rally on the way upwards. I did play into the rally as much as I possibly could on the way upwards. I did play all the coins that I tried to put out on this watch list, or at least tried to play those coins, right? So we're bullish now, baby. Run it back. Have fun staying poor if you didn't buy the dip, all that kind of stuff. No, but seriously, the chart is headed towards the top right corner. We can justify that across pretty much every single time frame. There are only very few lingering arguments lasting at the moment, but those are obviously much, much higher. So something like the 200 daily moving average, which we just cracked above today, right? And then something like mid range along with this 200 EMA. Range highs are implied now that we're considering this a deviation, just like we did on the way down, right? And just like every other range that has formed in the past year or so. So it's kind of just par for the course, right? The market was going down and then it went sideways and now it's going up. So you want to be anticipating that up as long as we can continue to justify up. So hopefully that is the case here. And that's the point that gets across. So, with that quick analysis out of the way, I know that wasn't really all that quick, but we will go back and review the watch list from last week. So, to start off, we had BNB. So, this is one that I did share individually on Twitter. And that was mostly just because of the reclaim of something like 4 hour 200 moving averages. So, clean this up a little bit, but basically, the point that I want to get across here is just simply that we had a very clean, very clear cut downtrend. And with this price action specifically, we invalidated that downtrend. So now you're able to scale your assumptions to say that, sorry, you hear my puppy squeaking her toy in the background. Yeah, my bad. These videos are never professional, right? I never have a thumbnail with my mouth wide open. But you can scale your assumptions to a higher degree and kind of just look for whatever the next most relevant resistance level is, right? So in that case, that would have been something like maybe this 283 zone. I actually just went ahead and said 300. That's the next sort of like daily range that I was looking to play into. And a couple of my favorite people on Twitter shared those same beliefs. So if you're watching this, shout out to you. But yeah, so pretty much all was fine and dandy. The trend continued uptrending to parabolic extent, and we never really looked back. This isn't going to be in my watch list here today just because we're coming up into a pretty significant resistance level. So I would imagine that the momentum maybe stalls at least somewhat. But strength is still strength. You could absolutely look to play into this trend the same way that you played into it initially. Scaling those assumptions off of something like 15-minute 200 moving averages to play into your higher time frame bullish buys, right? Those 4 hour 200s and that sort of daily range, right? So something else is Atom USDT. The only reason that I wasn't really all that interested in playing Atom was because even though we had shown some pretty significant signs of strength, we were still capped below this daily range. So it was like, hey, at the time, Atom is outperforming pretty much every other coin in that market environment, but you just kind of have to keep in mind that we're coming up into this massive daily resistance. If we break out above that daily resistance, we're now expanding away from that range. And when we break out of ranges, you would typically just assume further expansion. That's exactly what Adam's done. So another pretty good winner. Obviously, I do want to just take a little side note here and just say that the point of these videos is not to just sit here and self fellatio myself and say, "Oh my God, I told you, right? This coin would go up, and then it goes up." That's totally not the point because the rising tide came and it lifted all boats. So it's pretty much throw a fucking blind dart and you're going to hit a bullseye season, right? It's really, I could have given you any random ass fucking five altcoins from, the shittiest of shit, and I could come back to claim cloud on them today. But it's the matter of being able to differentiate what is physically showing strength and outperforming the rest of the market. How am I looking to play into winning assets, right? Assets that are already establishing uptrends. So something like BTC, which is just now starting to create some pretty significant higher time frame bullish arguments. What has already done that? What is, where BTC is just now bouncing off of a 15-minute trend, right? Local uptrend, what is already making a higher high, right? Those kinds of coins. So when we find ourselves in this market environment where pretty much the rising tide has come and it's lifted all boats, more along the lines of, instead of, oh, here's a massive discrepancy, here's what's drastically outperforming compared to all of this, which is still downtrending and heading to the bottom right corner. It's going to be more about pros and cons, right? The strongest coins in the market at the moment are something like Gala. So let's just take a look at this for a second, right? And if you look at this on other any other time frame, you're going to see how drastically strong this coin is in comparison to the rest of the market. It's a massive sort of move. It is just breaking every single structure that it developed on the way down, right? It just reversed a 2 month downtrend of down only to a massive extent. It just reversed that in like 3 or 4 days, right? So obviously, this is a great coin to look to trade. It's probably the strongest coin in the market if I had to guess at this moment. But the caveat that comes along with that is that there's not really a way for me as Trader Mercury to come in and trade this. I like to trade higher time frames. I like to trade higher time frame moving averages. I like to trade higher time frame structures. I like to trade higher time frame levels. I cannot do that for something like Gala when this was the downtrend that was portraying that sort of extent of a down only environment. And now this is the uptrend that's portraying it, right? We do not give a shit about these 4 hour 200s. If I'm the person looking and attributing strength to the 4 hour 200s, cool. That's an amazing analysis. That means that I told you Gala would probably go up somewhere starting here. But could I have realistically played into that analysis? Is that an actionable analysis, or is it just analysis? It's just analysis, right? It's like, hey, it's very easy to point at the chart and tell me which way it's headed. How do you actually then go and trade it? How do you interpret that information and apply it to your own portfolio and then hopefully translate that to green P&L, right? I can't do that for Gala. So if you can, then obviously these sorts of coins are going to be more appealing to you. The strongest coins in the market at face value via that definition. This list this week, when the market is pretty much just all collectively moving in one fluid motion, pretty much every altcoin is essentially headed to that top right corner. It's more about balance. What looks good and is strongly outperforming and has an actionable sort of approach tied to it. I can physically go in and trade it, scale my assumptions from low time frames and look to play into higher time frames, that sort of thing, right? So we're still reviewing. Sorry, I know that I'm taking forever. Please don't skip the video. This is all valuable information. I'm sure you'll find that it pays off eventually. Ethereum Classic was another good one. Again, so 4 hour 200s. I don't think we used 4 hour 200s. I think the portrayal was more along the lines of 3 hour or maybe 2 hour, depending on how you see it. Again, pros and cons, where one's kind of iffy, one might be more efficient, and then the inverse in a different scenario. But essentially, it gave you the foundation for the argument, and ever since then we've gone on to continue that trend, probably along some lower time frame moving averages, whatever it may be. Hourly 200s probably more effectively portrayed via something like 30-minute 200s, even a little bit more obscure but probably more efficient, right? A little bit of a fluke, but you break out, reclaim, retest, and then you keep it going. So Ethereum Classic performed well. Another one was Ocean, which we just kind of said, this one's being manipulated by your favorite influencer with 100,000 followers, and they're just dumping on your heads. That probably continues to be true. Obviously, it's only gone up since then. So again, this is just me clout claiming. XMR is another one. This is very algo driven. This is pretty much up only and has been for many, many weeks now. Monero has been on the watch list for many weeks, right? Way prior to when I took a break during Christmas, I think 2 weeks in a row, and it continues to outperform. So now that I have a little bit more of a luxury of an option, sort of like to choose from, then we're just gonna refrain from acknowledging these coins that I wouldn't really actually go look to trade, and we're going to focus more on things that I would actually look to trade. So another thing that was on the watch list from last week was Litecoin, and Litecoin continued to outperform. You can see strength is strength, relative strength is relative strength. This is exactly what I kind of mean. This is a great example where BTC is just now breaking into a previous 5 month long range, right, and starting to threaten higher time frame uptrend and blah blah blah, yada yada, whatever. Right, Litecoin has already done that 2 months ago. And since then, all you had to do was continue that trend. We broke out of a 5 month long range. We then technically, that is a textbook pullback retest of a multi-month long range on the sort of time frame that you would want to see that pullback retest on, right? If we're talking about a daily level here or weekly level, you want to physically be able to see the price action from a textbook perspective. You want to physically be able to see the price action breaking out and retesting that kind of level, right? Which means that that needs to occur over many days, many weeks, many months, whatever it may be. But this definitely fits into that category. And obviously, a continuation of this trend from last Friday, this trend, right? A continuation of that trend would be relative strength in comparison to something like BTC. We're looking for a higher high, in terms of continuation, and you would be looking for a higher high in terms of a brand new market structure break for something like BTC. So massive discrepancy there. That's how we're determining relative strength. So with that, did we talk about Sol? I don't actually know. Sol was another one on the last week's watch list. I move just randomly. I don't have like a script that I'm watching or anything like that. This is all fluid. Yeah. So Sol was another one, and Litecoin was obviously, and I think that's it. So the reason that I'm talking about Sol and Litecoin is because they are going to be on this week's watch list as well. So that's 2 out of the 5 already. Now we only have to talk about 3 more. So this video isn't as long as you thought it would be. ADA, USDT, Another one that is on this week's watch list. So we talked about this. So now that's 3 out of 5 that have kind of just been regurgitated from last week. So same exact idea. The initial argument was something along the lines of like 3 hour 200 moving averages, or right, so way down here, or 4 hour 200 moving averages. And I know this looks insane, but this literally, all developed within the past week. So last Friday we were trading right here, right? We called out ADA. And so ever since then, that snowball has just simply continued rolling its way down the hill and becoming more along the lines of like a snowman. So we want to anticipate further strength from here as long as local trends are maintained. And then if those local trends are not maintained, you're allowed to look for that deeper pullback into your more quote unquote ideal, right, high time frame swing long zone. But unless or as long as those local trends are still being respected, whatever it may be, it's not the hourly 200s. Is it the 30-minute 200s? You can make an argument that it is. I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to say that it's the 15-minute 200s. So I will pay the cost of being, fluked out here and having to rebuy back higher, right? And instead of watching these 30-minute 200s and being front ran on my position here, 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 and here, right? So to me, a more efficient portrayal is the 15-minute 200s, which essentially means that as long as we're still above the 15-minute 200s, you can't even give me an argument as to why this is going to pull back to a much greater extent. Once we lose the 15-minute 200s, you can then tell me why ADA is going to come back into this demand zone, why it might even pull back as deep as something like the 4 hour 200s or maybe the 3 hour 200s, right? But until then, you can't really give me much of a bearish argument. Your bearish argument essentially is the same thing that it was this entire way up. Oh, look, it's overextended. Look at that bear div. Look at the bear div here. Look, we're at resistance, right? Which all meant absolutely nothing because all we cared about was the trend, and the trend continued trending. So that's the point. You're going to look to play into that trend as much as possible before it breaks. And then when it does break, you can scale your assumptions to a higher degree, look to play into higher time frames. You could even be shorting those lower time frames in the meantime. So much more actionable way of thinking, isn't it? When you break it down that way. Another coin. So this is now where we get to the new coins in the. Hold on, wait. Trading View's acting up. All right, so we're back, and I take it back. It wasn't Trading View; it was actually my keyboard died. So yeah, you guys can tell how prepared I am for these kinds of videos. Yeah, but here we are for near, and near is massively overextended. Is the way that I'm thinking about it. So it's not that it's overextended. I should rephrase that. It's more along the lines of the initial trend downwards, right? So this downtrend is so dramatic that the extent of the reversal is probably going to be somewhat sort of like parallel, right? It's going to sort of be, you know, relatively move to the same style of percentage in like, dramatic fashion. So you don't want to, sit on your hands and cope or revenge short these kinds of moves, these kinds of reversals. So something along the lines of like 4 hour 200s being reclaimed, as well as, whatever it may be, breaking out above this resistance level. So horizontal resistance maybe here along those range highs, which we just consolidated at today and then pushed off of, or maybe even just something as simple as breaking out above this support, right? Or resistance, flipping it into support as confluence to that idea, and obviously playing into whatever the local trend is. So you could argue maybe hourly 200s, probably not because you only have one sample size. So you'd probably go for something a bit more efficient of a portrayal. So maybe 30-minute 200s, you could probably argue. Again, maybe 15-minute 200s. There's no real right or wrong here. It's just more pros and cons. So what are you going to look to play into? And therefore that those cons come into it. Maybe you are getting chopped up here or taking a loss along 15-minute 200s, whereas I am just now entering a trade along 30-minute 200s, right? So there's just a tiny little discrepancy in our approaches, but relatively we see the same damn thing. That needs to be the point, right? We see the exact same thing. So where you are entering perfectly along something like 15-minute 200s, right? I am still waiting for an entry along my 30-minute 200s. So it's just a little bit of discrepancy there. But the idea is the same regardless. Probably 15-minute 200s are what I would use. And obviously, you just look for continuation, both in the local term, meaning up into the whatever the next local resistance level is, as well as high time frame. So as long as those 4 hour 200s are maintained, I can continue to argue bullish arguments, regardless of whether we're above those 15-minute 200s or not. I can still make high time frame bullish arguments. The question becomes, do I want to make high time frame bullish arguments when we could come all the way down to these 4 hour 200s and still be just as bullish as we are today? Probably not, because if we're talking about a pullback to the extent of like 25%, right? So if the analysis that I'm giving you is, hey, just so you know, near could pull back negative 20% and still be bullish. Yes, that's technically a proper analysis. I didn't lie to you, right? Based off of my system. I'm not lying to you, but the difference is there's no way you can actually fucking go and trade that. You're going to eat a negative 20% drawdown, and you depend on that higher time frame trend to continue for you to succeed, essentially, right? Because if that trend breaks, now you've eaten a negative 30, negative 40% drawdown by the time that that trend actually does break. So that is putting yourself in the sort of seat where the market determines your success. We want to take ourselves out of that position and make it where we dictate our own success. So learn to scale assumptions using low time frames, high time frames, but near is something that I'll be looking to play moving forward. The last one is Ave, and then I'll let you guys go, or Ave. I like to say Ave. I think it's actually pronounced Ave. I really do not care. Right. Again, this is just another coin for me to print money off of because of its volatility. So that's the way that I see it. If you disagree, I'm very, very sorry. But you've probably also been bag holding Ave to $50. So, who's who or who's right. Right. But Ave, pretty much local resistance. Still high time frame uptrend. 4 hour 200s extremely clean. Might want to pay attention to something like 200 daily moving averages, which are coming up, but pay attention to that local trend as well, whatever it may be. Maybe let's try 30-minute 200s and just see how that works. And yeah, pretty solid portrayal of that local trend. So look to play into the 30-minute 200s, scale your assumptions off of that, use the 4 hour 200s if possible, and take it from there. And if we do somehow manage to reclaim those 200 daily moving averages, then one could honestly argue that this pump for Ave is just now getting started, right? And the real fun has not even begun. So look to play into these coins. Hopefully this helps. I know I got a lot of DMs from you guys over the week, just thanking me so much. And I want to sort of emphasize the fact that you shouldn't be thanking me. At the end of the day, you are pressing the buttons. I don't want any more credit for your success than I do your failures, which is zero. I don't want any credit for your failures any more than I want for your success. So I hope that point is true. I'm trying to help you guys become traders, not rely on other traders, right, to trade for you. So I hope that point gets across pretty well, and I hope you guys have managed to do well the past week. Obviously, the watch list outperformed to a much greater extent than anyone could have ever possibly dreamed, to be honest. But it is what it is. The rising tide lifts all boats, and I am just simply a genius because of the market environment, and maybe because of my own theories and concepts and dogmas and whatever it may be that you guys hopefully get some value from and continue to enjoy week by week and whenever I provide shit posts on Twitter. So, yeah, hopefully that's the case. And this is the part where I like to say, if that is the case, the best way to support me to a much greater extent is to use my Bybit referral link and trade under that account moving forward. I do get a rebate from that in terms of commission for whatever fees you pay to the exchange, and I am partnered with Bybit, so that does help me out a lot. So if that's the what you want to do, you want to support me, then donating or whatever that's cool and all. But the best way to support me is to just sign up and use my Bybit referral link. Again, I don't ask for much from you guys. Someone gave a very rude comment many weeks ago. I'm not dwelling on it, but I just want to point out that I am not making money from YouTube. I don't make money from this. I don't have nearly enough subscribers, get nearly enough amount of views, and I'm not even monetized. And truly, when they do go to see my application to be monetized in however many months from now, they're gonna look and see how much I fucking curse during out these, throughout these videos, and then to say, yeah, fuck your monetization. No one wants to sponsor you. So yeah, that's the case. I don't make any money from this stuff. I do it out of the kindness of my heart because I like teaching. I like the feedback, and you guys keep me going. You keep me motivated. But if you do want to support me, then yeah, much appreciated as always. I hope you guys enjoy. Have a great weekend and take it easy.